The $1.5 trillion budget request of the Department of Defense just dropped, with $75 billion allocated to drones and related systems. Feels good to have the best drone battery producer in the portfolio right now. Elon is making some very big moves. Trump is ordering a nuclear reactor on the moon by 2030, never a dull moment. Last week, the Livicus portfolio was down by 3%, the S&P 500 was up by 1%, and the Nasdaq up by 2%. These 10 stocks are still trading at a discount according to my models. They are Aeva, Navan, Palantir, Samsara, ABTC, Recursion, Howard Hughes, IonQ, Archer, and Oklo. Here's the news that impacted our stocks in week 17, from April 20th to 26th, 2026. US-Iran negotiations for a second round were tentatively planned to continue on Tuesday in Islamabad, ahead of the Wednesday ceasefire deadline. The US delegation, led by Vice President J.D. Vance, was prepared to travel, but Iran signaled it would not participate, rejecting talks under the shadow of threats or while the US naval blockade of Iranian ports continues. Tehran called further discussions pointless until Washington eases the pressure. In response, the Trump administration announced that both the ceasefire and the blockade would continue indefinitely. The White House has pointed to deep divisions within Iran's leadership, particularly between the more pragmatic government elements and the hardliner military fractions, as a driver for the delays. And then on Wednesday, things took a slight turn for the worse. 3 cargo ships were attacked in the Strait, with Iran-backed forces claiming responsibility. As this got confirmed on Thursday, the market got spooked, stocks sold off, and oil prices jumped again. Later on in the week, Iran made clear that it will not return to the negotiation table until the Strait is fully reopened. On Saturday, so yesterday, indirect talks were planned to take place in Islamabad, with Vice President Vance standing by to fly over in case things could advance. But Trump cancelled the meeting, calling all the travel a waste of time if nothing moves forward. If they want to talk, they can just pick up the phone. The Iranians are asking for shared understanding. They feel negotiations should not be held under military pressure or a blockade of the Strait. Now, I am no Iran expert, but this sounds like there's a path forward where both parties open the Strait and continue negotiations in peace and quiet. The US can always flip the switch again if needed. That would be the nicest outcome for our stocks. Let's move on to the company-specific news of last week. Q1 earnings season officially started for us last week, with Tesla reporting on Wednesday evening. The main topic is the capex they are throwing at realizing their mission of creating amazing abundance through Robotaxi and Optimus, plus all the enabling infrastructure such as ground-based and orbital data centers. Check it out if you're interested. Next week will be a nice warm-up with Nautilus and Butterfly reporting, and the week after that is going to be a complete nightmare, with earnings coming out for Palantir, Aeva, Howard Hughes, IonQ and Amprius. I'm going to try to keep up. The Pentagon just published its full year 2027 defense budget request, including $75 billion earmarked for drones, autonomy systems and counter-drone technology. That's more than double the previous levels. The increase follows the 2025 Executive Order on American Drone Supremacy. Our portfolio company Amprius is perfectly positioned to benefit here with their silicon anode batteries. As I explained in my deep dive, the company's batteries can be compared to an espresso. It carries the same amount of caffeine or energy as a regular coffee, the competition, but it only takes half the size. Or alternatively, double the caffeine for the same size. This makes them perfect for drones. They have also worked hard to source from NDAA-compliant suppliers, enabling them to supply their products to the defense industry. All in all, a great tailwind for Amprius, and the share price shows it. Samsara came out with smart compliance. They are quietly and steadily making themselves completely indispensable just by being super useful. So most countries have strict rules on how long truck and bus drivers can drive before taking a break. Violations mean fines, which are painful but manageable. What's actually killing companies is the time spent manually hunting through data to find those violations. In Europe especially, where every country has slightly different standards and fleets cross borders constantly, it's a nightmare. Smart compliance integrates directly with Video, a leading European manufacturer of tachographs, the devices that track when vehicles are in motion, pulling in both their device data and their infringement detection algorithm. So compliance teams can now manage everything inside of Samsara's connected operations platform instead of stitching together all these different systems. And with real-time alerts, drivers get warned before violations even happen. And I know this might sound boring, but it's incredibly useful for these companies. If you stack up all these different types of efficiencies that Samsara delivers through its various products, the impact on a company's efficiency and costs is enormous, which ultimately translates into Samsara's Samsara's bottom line and its stock price. Here's some news coming out of SpaceX. We of course do not own SpaceX in the portfolio, but a lot of people think we might soon, through a merger between SpaceX and Tesla, so it is pretty relevant. SpaceX has secured the right to acquire Cursor, the AI-powered code editor, later this year for $60 billion, or pay a $10 billion breakup fee. So coding agents are viewed as one of the highest impact AI applications of today. The foundational model builders like OpenAI and Claude, who until now powered Codex with their compute, have started competing directly with it through their own coding models. Through the deal with SpaceX, xAI gets access to Cursor's top-of-the-line coding models, and Cursor gets the compute it needs. And in other SpaceX news, their SEC filings confirm a dual-class share structure for their IPO. Public investors get Class A shares with 1 vote each, and Elon and a few insiders get Class B shares with 10 votes apiece. So in practice, this means that Musk keeps the majority of his voting control even as his economic ownership gets diluted by the public listing. If a Tesla-SpaceX merger comes to fruition, this level of control will probably transfer into the combined group to some extent. Oklo announced a 3-way collaboration with Nvidia and Los Alamos National Laboratory to accelerate advanced nuclear technology using artificial intelligence. The partnership will use Nvidia's powerful AI models and compute to speed up nuclear fuel development and simulation for Oklo's small modular reactors. At the same time, the 3 organizations are working on a full-stack solution for nuclear-powered AI factories, delivering reliable power along with digital twin, grid stabilization and proof-of-concept nuclear facilities. This is further strong validation for Oklo and its role in solving energy shortage for AI. On April 14th, the White House launched the National Initiative for American Space Nuclear Power, directing NASA, the Pentagon and the Department of Energy to accelerate space fission reactors. It calls for orbital demos by 2028 and a lunar service reactor by 2030. It builds on today's radioisotope power systems that deliver reliable low power needs in probes like Perseverance and Voyager. Last week we discussed what these radioisotopes actually are. Check out the video if you're interested. This new initiative focuses on high output fission reactors for sustained lunar bases and Mars missions. Of course, Oklo is perfectly positioned to take advantage of this momentum because they are working on setting up production for radioisotopes and small modular reactors, both of which are suitable for application in space. Palantir picked up another significant government contract this week, a $300 million agreement with the US Department of Agriculture to modernize how the department delivers services to American farmers. Palantir's platform is already live in the Department of Agriculture and they have shown impressive results, which of course makes the next contract a lot easier to sign. The new agreement expands the contract to cover farm security, supply chain resilience and fraud prevention, with a clear focus on keeping foreign adversary influence out of America's agricultural programs. Another day, another example of how Palantir is quietly becoming the operating system of the US government. And finally, in the quantum news of last week. This week, IonQ published what they're calling the Walking Cat architecture. A 110-page blueprint for describing how they will aim to build a fault-tolerant quantum computer, which is what all quantum companies are after. What's interesting is they made the whole thing public, rather than keeping it as proprietary IP. IonQ has been positioning itself as the quantum merchant of the industry, as we've discussed in our latest deep dive. Check it out here. They are not just building their own systems, but supplying the chips, components and know-how to the rest of the industry, including competitors. Publishing this is intended to set a standard for the industry, and combined with their acquisition of chip foundry Skywater, it reinforces that they're aiming to become the foundational layer the rest of the quantum industry runs on. That wraps up the news of week 17. Let's have a look at the overview of current stock prices versus my buying targets. The chart shows what percentage the stock is currently above or below the price at which I want to start thinking about buying more of the stock. This is usually about 5% below the average price to sales or price earnings ratio the stock has traded on over the past period. And here are the price corridors for Aeva, ABAT, Amprius, Butterfly, Navan, Palantir, Samsara and Tesla. As always, you should read these charts as follows. The light blue line indicates where the stock would trade if it was in line with its historical price to sales or price earning ratio. Depending on if the stock was profitable, I will use a different method. If the dark blue share price line is above the light blue line, it's relatively expensive, and below it is relatively cheap. The gray area indicates one standard deviation above and below the average forward price earnings or price to sales ratio. And on this slide, you can see an update of the all-time performance of the Livicus portfolio. Just a quick note note on these figures. The calculation is based on my average buying price versus the current stock price. And that's a wrap on week 17. I hope you learned something and maybe discovered an opportunity to make some money. If you're enjoying the content, please do me a quick favor. Follow, subscribe, hit the bell so you don't miss the next deep dive or weekly update. Thanks a lot for watching and I'll see you next week. These are just my opinions. Please supplement them with your own research before making an investment decision.